You're listening to Freight Famous, presented by Rose Rocket, bringing you the people that make trucking move. From behind the scenes into the limelight, here's your host, Justin Bailie.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Freight Famous, a podcast produced by Rose Rocket. New episodes of Freight Famous will be released about twice a month. On this podcast, we talk with guests about how they build, scale, and automate their trucking and transportation and logistics and supply chain businesses. If you have a trucking business, supply chain business, logistics business, or whatever else I just said, you might be looking for software to support said business. Or you might know someone who is. If you do, I've got some good news. Rose Rocket has some free money to give you. That's right, free money. All through our incentivized referral program. To learn more, email us at referralpartners@roserocket.com, and we'll be in touch. I'm your host, Justin Bailie, co-founder at Rose Rocket, and today I have Lindsey Trent, the co-founder and president of Next Generation Trucking Association. So, Next Generation is a not-for-profit organization that helps high schools develop programs to really, I think, in many ways, to elevate the idea of what truck driving is, but also bring it to the forefront of the mind of somebody at a kind of a critical age in, say, grade 12, or even earlier, as she talks about in the show, what a career path in trucking might look like. And sort of the end of the show, we get talking about how trucking could really be viewed similar in a trade environment like plumbing or carpentry or things like this. And they're really on a mission doing some pretty cool things with pretty heavy-handed technologies, and the program's super organized, and you can basically graduate from this program as get credits while you're doing grade 12, come out of it, and within 4 weeks of coming out of high school, you are driving a truck professionally, and you're making real adult money in the real world, doing real work. So great organization, really cool initiative, and I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I did. Hi, Lindsay. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, cool. So, how did you end up here? I ask most of my guests just for a quick background on how they end up in these places, and I'm always liking the answer to these stories because they're never maybe what you would have thought. So, how did you become what you are and be to sit here and talk with me today?
Isn't it funny that most people say that they somehow just randomly fell into trucking?
Yeah.
And that's definitely my story too. I graduated with a selling and sales management degree, so I have been in sales most of my career. I got out of it for a little while and then wanted to get another job back in sales and found this ad about a driver staffing company. And I was like, that sounds kind of interesting. I had no idea anything about professional drivers, about the trucking industry, but I applied for the job and really liked the message of the company. Going through this interview process, got the job, and then literally fell in love with the trucking industry. I really love that in trucking, you hit basically every industry. One day I would go into a company that hauled auto parts. The next day I would go into a granite company that had drivers. Then I'd go into a food distributor. I mean, it was just really cool because it really touches on every industry, and the people in trucking are amazing. So I stayed in it, and here we are today.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about it probably is my absolute favorite thing about trucking and being kind of on any side of it is the different types of businesses you get to see. I'm a pretty big business nerd and sort of unit economics nerd, so I just love the different types of businesses, and I love finding somebody makes that. There's a business for that. I love those discoveries and just the different I think my kids, well, they're kind of old enough to know now. When they were younger, they used to think I was super smart because they would, I could talk about almost any kind of business because I've probably been in it or seen someone who's kind of related to it. So you kind of learn about all these different, cheap pieces of the supply chain that kind of inform you on the greater thing. My kids are teenagers now, so they think I'm the inverse of smart. But that's, if you don't have teenagers, you'll learn soon. And if you do, then you know all about it. So what is Next Generation Trucking?
Well, we really created, it's an association, right? We're pretty new. We launched 2.5 years ago, and we're all volunteers. And we created the association out of a need for the industry to come together and cohesively figure out what we could do to solve the problem. What's the problem? Well, it's a problem that we talked about forever and ever, and literally every day have this conversation. Oh, there's a driver shortage. We have an aging workforce. Young people aren't getting into the trucking industry. And it's like, okay, well, we're talking about this problem. What if we come together, create a cohesive solution to solve the problem? And that means getting an education. It means workforce development. It means impacting young people and helping them explore the trucking industry as a career path that they could take. And so we've developed the association to do those things. And we're really focused on 3 verticals. So we're focused on helping schools create commercial driving programs, medium heavy duty truck programs, so like diesel tech, EV, and then supply chain management programs. So all of these high schools have career tech ed programs, and they can offer plumbing, they can offer computer science, they can do health sciences, culinary, you name it. Really, there wasn't a whole lot of options for the trucking industry. And so we're changing that. We are getting trucking in the supply chain within education across North America.
And is this primarily focused on high schools? Like, is that the general initiative? Is it kind of focused strictly on high schools, or is there other areas that are of interest, or
Yes.
or is it mainly high schools?
Well, I would say it's secondary and post-secondary, because a lot of times they partner together in creating a program. So I work with both, but then really career exploration starts to happen in middle school.
Mm.
And we've got to start introducing young people when they're on that thought process of what they're going to do. Actually, today, my daughter she's an 8th grader. She went over to the Career Tech Center in our community, in our county, and they're starting to say, okay, what do you want to do when you grow up? And here's some different pathways you can take. That happens in 8th grade. And so we want to get trucking as let's explore that as a career possibility when schools are doing career exploration.
So I'm imagining you kind of start with this initiative, and as I understand, I think there are certain age limits to driver requirements and things like that. So are you thinking about like even lobbying into that level to try to reduce some of those things, or are there other points of friction maybe that myself or listeners wouldn't be aware of that make this more challenging, other than just trying to sell the trying to dress trucking up
Yeah.
is hard unto itself. But then there's
Yeah.
also policy challenges. What are some of the policy challenges that maybe make this challenging?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I mean, we're taking a holistic approach. So we are helping schools holistically create programs that aren't just training a young person how to drive, but being a professional driver has a lot of skills, right?
Hmm.
It's customer service, it's independence. They're making a lot of decisions on their own. This holistic program that we've created for high schools then gets a high school student to graduate 18. They're ready to get their behind the wheel training, maybe at a local driving school or the community college. And then it's time to go to work. Well, a lot of us know that insurance doesn't want to cover an 18-year-old. But the idea is that once they graduate, they get their behind the wheel training, then they go through an apprenticeship program where the company that's hiring them invests in them and really mentors them. And they can be a long-lasting professional driver that has a great career at that company. And so we are working hard in terms of policy, and we're behind the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program. If you're familiar with that, it's basically a program that the US federal government put on, the FMCSA, where 3,000 people from 18 to 20 can take a part of this program and drive interstate. So if you're 18, you can drive intrastate. You can get your CDL in across the country at 18, and you can drive intrastate. They want to statistically see if 18 to 20-year-olds are as safe as a 24-year-old, and be able to help get those statistics to see if they can drive interstate.
Got it.
So they've got this pilot program. Also, if you're a harvester, harvesters have like a special restriction that's taken off so they can drive interstate as well. But we're hoping with creating these training programs and where, these young people are really studying how to be a professional driver. They're on this driver simulator for 30 hours of training before they even get behind the wheel to practice, that we're going to really create a very safety focused, conscious driver that it really wants to be a professional driver. This isn't for everybody, right? This is for that person that this is a really good fit for their career path.
And what makes this a good fit for someone's career path? Like, how is that either, I guess, articulated by the student in this case, or identified by you guys? Like, how do you know who a good fit is, or what does that profile out like?
Well, that's a good question. We let students we have a job behaviors assessment. So there's a company, Job Behaviors, and they have an assessment out. If you take this 10-minute assessment and if you score high, which a 3 to 5 score is a high score, then you're more likely to have the behaviors needed to be a successful professional driver. And so we have this for students to be able to take, and then those ones that score high, we invite into the program. And I think that's really helps. But these young people, maybe they're like, I don't want to go to college. I know I want to drive. Maybe they've been fascinated by trucks since they were a kid. Maybe they have an aunt, an uncle, a parent that's a driver. There's a lot of reasonings why somebody wants to go right into the career path. And these Gen Zers, they're questioning that college model. Do I want to go to college and get student loan debt? And go get student loan debt and might not even finish, or finish and make less money than I could make if I went and started driving right away.
Yeah, it's kind of the idea that I think, and I'm thinking this is sort of personal to me right now. My oldest is in grade 12. So he's going through this process of what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And and I think this is different with each sort of household. So this is just, an opinion and a point of view of one. But, I'm largely in the mind of you're so young, you're 17 right now. And the idea that you really know what you want to do with your life is kind of hilarious. And because I'm 43 and I'm not super clear on what I want to do with my life. And so I think there's a lot of this sort of pressure. And I think as a young person, they're not aware of how, in a sense, kind of ludicrous it is to be thinking about, I think they have this real sort of finite idea of I'm going to do this job and then that's what I'll kind of do forever. And it's and I think about even truck driving as you're explaining this and started thinking about it actually makes for a really good, if you could figure out a way where driving at 18, 19, 20 is a way to actually, you can do it and you can drive interstate. You said some things there that I didn't even know that you can actually drive at that age. It doesn't have to be for the rest of your life even. Right? It can be a nice entry point. If you look at anyone who owns a trucking company, and I'm sure you could even go further, you don't have to do anything with that. Trucking companies, generally large ones, are multi-generational, and almost every single one of those starts is how did this company start? Well, my grandfather was a truck driver. Is almost how every single narrative starts of every trucking company that's got any kind of 90% of truck companies I talk to are multi-generational. And so, it doesn't just stop and start there. I think it actually kind of can be a gateway to a job. And I think in some ways truck driving feels almost like an end state versus a stepping stool. So I imagine there must be, some good conversations around this isn't the end. This can be the beginning. And it doesn't have to be you're not doing this till you're 60 and, just get sick of being on the road. And, you kind of have that cliche of maybe sort of negative feeling you might have towards what truck drivers are. It doesn't have to be that. There's a lot of different paths you can take, and I think you can start doing it just if you want to stop at 24 and do it for 6 years and make some money and then go on to something else, you can do that. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I think that's just my, again, I'm kind of projecting right now from my own conversations I'm having at home where you don't have to
Yeah, no,
lock
I think
in to
that's
20 years.
interesting.
Yeah.
And I talk to rooms of, I present it to rooms of people all the time. And I always ask this, how many of you in this room started off as a driver? And 30 to 50% at least raise their hand. And these are usually safety professionals,
Hmm.
HR professionals. So it is a pathway that leads to lots of opportunity.
Yeah.
And we also find that some students take this course because they want to work their way through college.
Mm.
And this makes a lot more money than if they work at the local fast food restaurant down the street. It gives them a skill set that they can always fall back on. But that is a scary thing. If you're, 17 years old and you're like, okay, what are you going to do for the rest of your life?
Hmm.
Let's take some of that pressure off, but we still need to give these students a skill set, and see what they could be passionate about. And trucking could be a fit.
So you mentioned there was there's kids, and it kind of in my mind that you sort of validated what I would think about people who have exposure to the space. So whether it's through family, or like you said, they've just been into trucks. Again, maybe I would imagine people who are growing up in more rural areas might be more inclined to this than say urban areas. How do you those ones I sort of get the cause and effect there of how they may decide that trucking works for them. There's an exposure and a comfort with it to a degree perhaps, but how does it look like? How do you help, for lack of a better term, market trucking to maybe those who haven't had exposure or have not really ever thought about it before? What are some of maybe the successful narratives or success stories you've seen of people coming from a completely different place that maybe you would never expect them to do that, but trucking's actually worked out to be a really good, career path for them?
Yeah, well, I mentioned that job behaviors assessment, and a lot of times that will identify somebody who maybe didn't have it on their radar of being a professional driver, but they score high on the assessment. And then we invite them to take the course and they say, well, I never considered that, but this is something that I've never thought about, but it looks like I would be a good fit and I could be successful in this. So why don't I give this a try and at least take the course? And so that's a narrative that we see a lot of times. Another narrative really is usually there's a neighbor, a family member, a friend, where there's some sort of connection in trucking that gets a young person excited about the possibilities of being in the industry. But you're right, we need to find out more ways to reach young people and let them explore trucking as a career path. So there's organizations like the North Carolina Trucking Association. They won a grant to create a workforce trailer. So they've got a truck and trailer that they take around to schools across the state. It's got several driver simulators in it. It's got an engine, a transmission. It's got VR headsets where they can change the oil in a truck. So it's about providing exposure to young people that might never consider it as a career path, and it's about finding the what young people are interested in and how trucking relates to that. Young people are interested in giving back to their communities. And so, how does trucking do that? Well, we provide most of the products that you eat, the medicines. I mean, we're transporting everything that you see, usually that's in a room, right? We have a lot of environmental initiatives that we're doing as an industry. We're trying to reduce emissions, um, different things like that. And so it's appealing to the next generation on what they value, and trying to sell that and expose them to trucking.
Hmm. And have you had success, like measurable in a sense? And maybe what I'm looking for here is like a story or like, this, like we did this and then this happened. And I'm actually interested in just the not-for-profit angle, but we'll go there after. Like what's
Okay.
the, is there a feel-good story that's kind of come from this? Because I'll kind of like circle to the question I was going to go to is sort of from a nonprofit perspective, these can be hard to run. Right. And I think like, some being buoyed by, look what we did can sometimes be some of the best currency you can actually get. So do you kind of have like a story you want to share of just about something that really, maybe makes you feel good or, makes you validates the path that you're on?
Yeah. So we created Next Gen really as a thing for the industry to really help place an emphasis on education. But we quickly learned that by helping high schools start these quality education programs in trucking, we're really impacting a young person's life. And so one of Dave's first students, and Dave's the co-founder of Next Gen, he's a high school teacher that created the curriculum. And one of his first year students was on the path to destruction. And so Dave only found this out by the student's dad coming into the class towards the end of the year. And he said, "I want to shake your hand." And Dave was like, "Why? What did I do?" And he said, "Well, before this class, my son was really feeling hopeless and was on a path to destruction. He hung around a group of friends that were in gang related activity. He wasn't really finding success in his high school, like that traditional education. It just
Hmm.
was nothing clicking with that traditional education experience, but he was going to graduate. And so before that, as a senior, they put him into this trucking class. He found something that he could do that was hands on. He found out he was good at it. He was tasting success, and it literally changed his entire perspective of saying, you know what, I'm going to go down this path of hanging out and doing things that I shouldn't be doing, to I see this for myself as a future, and I want to be a professional driver. Today, this graduate of the program is an owner operator. He owns his own truck. He graduated from the program. He's successful. His little brother got into the program. His little brother graduated from the program and became a professional driver. He just started his job working for Walmart as a professional driver. So we know what a good job that is. So it literally took this family
Hmm.
and completely turned the family's life around. Now to this day, so that guy, he had 10 friends that he hung out with. 2 of them are deceased from gang violence. 3 of them are incarcerated from gang violence. And he considers himself one of the lucky ones because
Hmm.
he got something that he found and fell in love with, and has totally changed his family tree.
Yeah, no kidding. And I love that, by the way. He's changed his family tree because that is actually the impact of that, right? That is
Right.
and those are the things that, thank you for sharing. That's kind of exactly what I was hoping to hear, something like that. So one thing I'm not clear on, and is you sort of, when I originally asked, like, how you got started here, and it was, you were in sales and you went and started working in sales for recruitment, and now you've ended up in a not for profit. Like, why? And I have some exposure to the not for profit world. Why this route? Like, why did you decide to go to do it
Yeah,
this way?
like creating Next Gen as a nonprofit.
Yeah, just as yeah, they're hard to do, and it's just a different kind of business, especially coming from a more commercial world, right? It's a totally different motion, different. It's similar in some ways, but it's not also. So yeah, I'm just curious as to again, as I mentioned, I'm kind of a business nerd, so I'm just curious as to why you chose this path, and why
Yeah.
this is the right way.
Well, that's a really good question. I am a strong believer in associations. In Next Gen, we're both an association, and we also have a foundation. And so we really wanted to put an emphasis on workforce development, bettering the lives of young people. And we think that trucking industry has great jobs, and we need to promote those jobs. Um, I guess we could have considered it as a for-profit type of business, but that never even crossed my mind.
Hmm.
To me, it always just seemed like that this was a mission we were on. We are on this mission to help these young people. We're on a mission to help them get connected to good jobs and help them get skilled, all while helping the trucking industry and sustaining the supply chain. And so, it's a good question. It never even crossed our minds to make it for profit. We're just trying to help trucking and help young people,
Hmm.
and it just kind of married together.
Oh, good on you. So what's next? what is sort of the future, or like what's this year have in store, and what are you trying to do, and how are you trying to expand and take the initiatives further?
Yeah, so we're continuing to meet with schools to start trucking programs. We're meeting with schools to start supply chain management programs. So when you're in high school, learning about being a supply chain manager, we're hoping
And sorry,
to.
just like how do you scale this? Like how do you actually like what's the how do you get it into the school? So
Yeah, good
how do you
question.
do that?
So we work with a lot of organizations. We work with the Association of Career Technical Education. So we present at their conference. We market to their readership, and they are teachers and administrators that help start these
Got
programs.
it.
We're involved with the American School Counselors Association. We're part of Future Farmers of America, Technology Student Association. There's so many organizations that we work with. And, people like, so the industry joins our association. Well, they're helping us promote the mission, and we promote the mission by engaging with these groups. It's not just about like us and what we're trying to do, but it's about career branding.
Yeah.
So we have a booth at the FFA convention, their national convention. It's once a year, over 70,000 students attend this convention. And our booth has a driver simulator, and we've got the VR headsets, changing oil in a truck. So we're just doing career branding. Like, hey, have you ever considered a career as a professional driver? We have professional drivers there that are talking to the students. So working with those organizations is a way that we're able to get in the schools. We have schools now contacting us saying, hey, this school in my state started this program and we would like to consider starting it. So how do we do that?
Cool.
And so it's been a lot of work, but we are scaling it through those types of activities.
Yeah, that is a lot of work. That's a lot of channel management.
But it's amazing. It's
Yeah,
so fun. I love what
yeah.
I do every day when I wake up. So
You you would have to, I think, just because that is a lot. That's a lot, but that's usually that's the fuel for good work, right?
yeah.
So what? So
Sorry.
let's.
And like, if we did a timeout so you can edit this, I kind of forgot. I think you asked me another question. Oh, like what else are we doing for the year?
Yeah, no, I would never. Yeah, no, we're gonna leave that in there just the way it is. It's perfect. And even just the way you did that, it's fun. Sometimes we make mistakes, and that's human. And it's okay. We don't have to. That's these questions are meant to just inspire conversation, and we'll just take it where we are. Because I actually have a different question I want to ask you anyway now. So, sell me, talk to me like okay. So I'm a student, and I'm like, I don't know if this is for me. Tell me what does training look like, and then what is sort of the benefits that I can hope to experience after said training. Like what's the pitch for me as a student just looking to see if this is something I might want to do.
Yeah, so we really we have some marketing tools that we sell, that the students can look at, and videos that they can watch. We also have marketing tools for their parents, because we've got to influence their parents
Mm-hmm.
to say it's okay. But the program is hands-on learning. You can take this as a senior if you're looking for some classes that have field trips, where you can experience a driver simulator. We also have a golf cart and trailer to do a distracted driving course and to practice your backing up skills. So you're going to learn all about the trucking industry and how to support the supply chain. And then you will be ready to have a job when you graduate and after you get your behind the wheel training. And this is all for free.
Mm.
Typically, school systems pay for this whole entire program, and then you graduate and you have a commercial driver's license. You haven't paid anything for it, and you can go straight to work. So you can take the class and explore and see maybe if this is a good fit for you.
And I don't know the answer to this. How long does it take to get your CDL? Like after you graduate, like how long does it take? Like what's the process actually to do that?
Well, so most schools are like 4 to 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Our program, if you're taking it in high school, it's 210 hours. 30 of those are lab hours. And then when they graduate, they go on to get their behind the wheel training. And it's another, 2 to 4 weeks of that behind the wheel training, depending on the person.
Yeah.
And then after that, a lot of companies have mentorship programs that can last 6 months. I mean, we really want to get the next generation comfortable and make the safety be the number one focus.
That's kind of crazy. So, would you get paid in the mentorship program, or is that like an unpaid internship? Like, what is that?
Yeah, usually you're working and you're getting paid while you're training with the company.
It's kind of insane. So, you graduate high school, you go for, let's say, average of 3 weeks for behind the wheel training, and then you're making bank. Like, you're right into it. You're rolling. You're making cash like 3 weeks out of high school. So, like, when all your friends are deciding what they want to do with their lives, and maybe they're going to go to college, you've already like steamrolled them with cash by the time they like start to go to school in September. I mean, it's actually a pretty quick turnaround from graduation to
Work,
to
yeah.
to making real money. Like, because yeah, it's like you said, this isn't minimum wage stuff. Maybe it is in that initial, but still, like, it quickly escalates to real money. So it's a good that's a nice that's nice. So
Yeah.
that's a good outcome.
I talked to a teacher last year and he said one of his students graduated, got their CDL, and went to haul for a dairy hauler in the state of Wisconsin and made over six figures his first year.
Yeah, they're making more money than the teachers are, right?
That is exactly what he said. Incredible, right?
Yeah,
It's
no,
incredible.
it is, and I think that's a great, and I really like this as a, and I think too, the more work that you do around this, it destigmatizes trucking as well. It's you're professionalizing it in the eyes of the drivers, and I think a lot of the like this stigma of trucking, I think, can really change at the level of the driver as the drivers start feeling sort of better about themselves and better about what they're doing and more sort of educated and professionalized. Not like, I think there is a bit of like, I fell into this, and this is what I have to do to kind of support a family. I think is like, this was intentional. This was thoughtful. I'm a professional driver. I'm trained. I'm skilled. I'm making and can make 6 figures a year doing it. That is a huge sort of wave of momentum to destigmatizing it. And I think then that momentum will feed the next generation, where it's just this is it's in demand work that pays really, really well for those who take it seriously and look at it as a profession that it is. I think it's a wonderful way to build the brand and the self sort of confidence and worth around driving a truck as a career path.
Yeah. And we're losing a lot of people at that 18 years old because they can't drive interstate, and there's really just not opportunities for them to get trained unless somebody's introducing it to them.
Yeah.
Because they have choices. They can go to welding, they can go into plumbing, so if we create more opportunities for them to be able to get trained and they make trucking their first career choice, it is going to elevate the industry.
Yeah.
It's
So,
not their fourth career choice, it's their first, and this is what they want to do.
well, I think it's interesting putting it in the category of that, where it's like, if you think about the sort of the trades, you kind of think about your key, you think about plumbing, electrician, like driving a truck or being a professional driver, as you, I think, nicely call it, that doesn't get into that category often, right? You think about all the different kind of work you do, but that doesn't get in there. And I think even to elevate it to a place where when you're looking at trades, if driving a truck is sort of, I don't know what trade I want to do because I know I want to do a trade, and driving a truck is a consideration as equal as electrician or plumbing or carpentry, that's a huge win. That's a massive win if you can kind of get on that level of conversation or at least mind share.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And so that's what next gen trucking, that's what we're trying to do.
That's a killer way to wrap it up. I love that as a close. So let's go out there. Is there anything that you want to tell the audience, or is there anything that we can do or they can do to help support you?
Yeah. So we would love for you all to follow us on socials, and we are on every social. It's at Next Gen Truckers. So follow us. You can also follow me on LinkedIn, Lindsey Trent. We have a monthly newsletter we send out, and we'd be happy to put you on that list. You can sign up directly on our website. And then if you're led, you can feel free to join our association and help support our efforts. We have individual memberships, we have company memberships, and then we also have a foundation if you just want to donate to our foundation. So we'd love your support in any way. We're 100% focused on the mission. And in order to survive, we definitely need the support of the trucking industry and people who have fallen in love with the trucking industry. And if that's you, then get on our website and partner with us today because we'd love to get connected.
You heard the lady, folks, and I think if you're listening to the show, you are, in fact, in love with the trucking industry. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. So she is speaking to you directly. So visit that website and see what you can do to support it, whether you're a trucking company owner. There could be opportunities here for employment, but also, how did you get here? And thinking about making, sort of small donations, I think can go a long way. So let's get together here and try to move this forward because it's a needed thing. And I think starting at this grassroots level, at the high school level, could be incredibly impactful. So let's do our best to support Lindsay and Next Gen Trucking. Lindsay, thanks for being here today and spending some time with me. This was great, and I feel like I'll see you around. I feel like that's a fair statement to say.
Yeah, I hope so. I'll be around and plugging away.
All right, cool. Well, be well, and thank you everybody for listening. And if you haven't already, like and or subscribe. Be well.